My name is Hannah Webb, and for my final project, I decided to do a local history research on my house, 401 St. Patrick Street, and that's a picture of it right there. The property that the house is built on was first purchased June 2nd, 1761 by a man by the name of Richard Gore. It was lot number 53, that's right there. It was about 1/2 acre, and we're not really sure what the land was used for. It could have been farmland, it could have been land with a home on it, but we're not really sure. We couldn't find any documents confirming. After Richard Gore owned it, it was passed around a lot from the late 1700s to the early 1900s. At the end of the 1800s, it was owned by the Pippin Pender family by 3 different women who inherited it from their father, and they cut the boundaries up in a bunch of weird ways. In 1906, it was split into northern and southern halves, and the southern half was sold to Nora Jenkins for $1,000. Nora Jenkins, when she bought the property, there was nothing but a shanty on it, this little living space, and she built the house that is on there now between 1906 and 1910. We don't have an exact year, but we can kind of infer because in the 1910 census there was a family living on the property as well as 2 boarders. Interestingly enough, the 2 boarders, Sally Dupree and Sam Carlisle, got married, and Sam Carlisle founded the famous Carlisle Funeral Home. In the home, in 1910, there was actually a death. Nora's 2nd son, Charles Franklin, died of typhoid fever at age 15. He is currently buried in Greenwood Cemetery, though we're not sure where. We can only assume that he's buried in an unmarked grave because he is not recorded anywhere else except on his death certificate, and it's written right there, Greenwood Cemetery. From Nora's family line, there is only one living descendant. Her name is Felina Jenkins, and she married the great-grandson of Nora Jenkins. She has no children, and she's 84, so once she dies, Nora's line's kind of over. She was actually kind enough to donate some items that were originally in the house. That included some napkin rings, these, that were belonging to Sam and Nora. Sam was Nora's husband. And they were probably a wedding gift from her sister, Sam's sister, I mean. We were given a photograph. This is the original print from S.R. Alley, and it's of Nora's son, Wilbur. And some handmade placemats that Nora made herself, probably during the time she was living in the house. So, it's pretty interesting. They date back about 100 years, maybe more. If anyone wants to see those, you're welcome to pass them around. Just very, very gentle, please. In 1910, shortly after Charles Franklin's death in July, Nora sold the house to the Presbyterian Church across the street from the home, and you could kind of guess that maybe she sold the home because one of her children died in it. But she sold the house for $5,000, and it was converted into a manse, which is the home where the Presbyterian ministers were living. It was home to 6 different pastors, and it was bought because it was more convenient than the old manse. A couple of the notable pastors that lived in the house were Daniel Iverson, who was a hymn writer. He wrote a fairly famous hymn that is still used today called Spirit of the Living God while he was living in the house. And the church says he wrote it in the actual church in his office, but you could say that he possibly wrote it in the actual house. Another interesting pastor that lived in the house was Thomas Littleton Harnsberger. He was a Chinese missionary, and when his family came over from China to live in the house and serve the Presbyterian Church, his family didn't own anything. They had nothing of material value. So the church and the congregation all banded together, and they furnished the home and hired a maid. And so when they got there, There was a roaring fire and a meal cooking, and it was fully furnished. The Presbyterian Church sold the house in 1946 to George Pennington, and it had several owners after the church, George Pennington, and they're all listed there and the years they owned the house. One of the interesting owners after the church was Kenneth Koskela. He was an artist, and he said in an interview several years ago that my father did that the house inspired a lot of his pieces, including this one right here, which is Midnight Visitor, and you can see it kind of looks like the staircase in the house. In 2004, my family bought the home. I was 5. That's me right there. There were some minor renovations done after my family bought the house, but it was mostly just like painting the interior because this painted pretty terrible colors. My dad did a lot of research when I was much younger, and he kind of helped me figure out where to start for this one. In August of 2011, Hurricane Irene came tearing onto the East Coast, and it ripped up an old oak tree that weighed about a ton and dropped it right on the front of the house. It's this tree right here. You can see it tore up the house pretty bad. The damages included a lot of leaking on the second story. A lot of the original plaster was really, really cracked. Two windows were broken, and one of them was original glass. The repairs included a new roof, new paint in every room, with the exception of the kitchen. The windows were replaced. All of the lead paint was removed from the outside of the house, thankfully, and some partial restoration of the porch. Here are some pictures of the renovations. The floors were redone. This is lead removal. This is them working on the roof up here. This is what it looked like before they papered it and put new shingles on it. Porch restoration, and this is a second story picture of what's up here. And this part, you can see that the rest of the house has blue siding, but this is different. That's because the siding had been so faded by the sun to a color that didn't actually exist in a vinyl siding. So what they did is they took some of the original cedar shake that was in the roof underneath of the tin that you can see right here, and they used it in the dormer, which is right here, and they took the siding that was there and used it up here, and then they used some of the cedar shake over here. So that's why they look different. And the house today. Today the house is over 100 years old. It's fallen on some hard times and it's gone through a lot of owners, but it still stands pretty tall and strong, and it's still my home, so I think it's pretty great. And that's the works cited for the photos. Does anyone have any questions?
How did you get in contact with
My parents had actually gotten in touch with her several years ago, in I think 2004 or 2005. And they did an interview with her. They went up to Virginia and talked to her. And we were like, I wonder if she's still alive. And then my dad looked her up and we got in touch with her and we told her what was going on with the project, and we were wondering if maybe we could get some pictures of the artifacts. And without telling us, she sent us all of the artifacts in a package without telling us she was sending them. So. Anyone else?
Okay, a couple of comments. Early purchase of the land by the Gores, very good. It would not have been farmland because that had been designated as the town.
Right.
So the farming would have been outside of
Okay.
town, because you had that was the original plat for the town of Tarboro that she had, was in 1760 when the town was laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Carlisle's funeral home was established in the 1870s.
Okay.
So it would have been Sam. Did you say it was Sam?
Yes, Sam
It would have been
Carlisle.
his father who founded it.
Okay.
He worked there, and eventually he's going to move to the house on the corner of Park and Main
Okay.
when he got married. And then S.R. Alley, if you're not familiar, is a photographer who was in this area for about 25 years. So having one of his pictures is really good.
We went and looked at a bunch of them in the library,
Right.
the North Carolina room. We looked at a bunch of his photos.
Yeah, he has a big collection. Okay, thank you.